When you think of New York's most notorious crime bosses, what comes to mind? A mafia don, an American gangster, or a butcher from the 5 Points? What if I told you that in the late 1800s, one of New York's biggest criminal bosses was a middle-aged immigrant Jewish mother living in Manhattan's Lower East Side? Meet Fredericka Mandelbaum, a German Jewish immigrant who became the criminal godmother of New York's underworld for nearly 25 years. This is the incredible story of the marvelous Mrs. Mandelbaum, the Queen of Fences. History's most infamous figures, Part 3. Fredericka was born in 1825 in Kassel, Prussia, to a poor Jewish family. Like many Jews in 19th century Europe, her family faced widespread prejudice and poverty, with limited opportunities for advancement. From a young age, Fredericka hustled to help her family survive, developing the quick mind and resourcefulness that would later fuel her rise to power. In 1848, she married Wolf Israel Mandelbaum, a peddler. Yearning for a better life, and with little more than hope and the clothes on their backs, they made the bold decision to emigrate to America in 1850. They arrived in New York City and settled in Manhattan's Lower East Side, in a cramped tenement in Kleindeutschland, or Little Germany. Like thousands of other immigrants seeking a fresh start, they found themselves relegated to the city's poorest neighborhoods, where opportunities were scarce. Wolf continued his work as a peddler, just as he had in Prussia, while Fredericka started selling lace door to door. Despite their relentless efforts, they were barely scraping by. Little did they know that an economic disaster was about to change their fortunes and their lives forever. The Panic of 1857 triggered a chain reaction of economic collapse. Hundreds of businesses failed, banks closed, and tens of thousands of people lost their jobs. In the Lower East Side, children roamed the streets, pickpocketing and looting vendors, desperate to sell their stolen goods to anyone who would take them. What they needed was a fence, someone who could buy and discreetly resell their stolen loot. This is where Fredericka saw her opportunity. She began buying and selling stolen goods for a profit, supplying people and businesses that didn't care where the goods came from. After being taught how to properly appraise items by veteran thief and fence, General Abe Greenthal, Fredericka embarked on her infamous and lucrative fencing career. Fredericka was a natural at the business, and her operation grew quickly. Before long, she and Wolf were able to lease a building on Clinton and Rivington, which became her base of operations. She opened a dry goods store as a front, but the real business, fencing stolen goods, took place in the back. They lived upstairs and soon were able to buy the building outright. As her reputation grew, her store became a meeting place for the city's pickpockets, burglars, and thieves, all looking to offload their stolen goods. Fredericka quickly earned a reputation for reliability and always paying fair prices. But she wasn't just buying stolen goods, she was training the next generation of criminals. She created what became known as the Grand Street School, where young pickpockets, burglars, and con artists were mentored in their craft. With her guidance, they learned how to perfect their skills while avoiding the watchful eyes of the law. By the late 1860s, Fredericka had firmly established herself as the city's go-to fence, and her influence continued to grow. She dealt in anything of value: silk, lace, diamonds, horses, carriages, silverware, gold, bonds, and more. Her ability to quickly and accurately appraise stolen goods set her apart. After the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, a significant portion of looted property passed through her hands, including a small herd of goats stolen during the fire. As her empire grew, Fredericka built a trusted network of associates, engravers to doctor jewelry, handsome cab drivers for quick getaways, and defense attorneys William Howe and Abraham Hummel, whom she paid a $5,000 annual retainer. But Fredericka wasn't just a ruthless crime boss. She was a fiercely loyal matriarch, not only to her 4 children, but to everyone in her criminal network. Affectionately known as Mother, or Marm, a term that combined motherly warmth with deep respect, she was a protector and benefactor to her crew. If any of her associates got into trouble, Marm would pay their bail, hire the best lawyers, and even support their families while they were behind bars. Her loyalty inspired fierce devotion, and criminals across the city knew they could rely on her. Her inner circle included notorious figures like General Abe Greenthal, Michael Kurtz, Queen Liza, Big Mary, Black Lena Kleinschmidt, Adam Worth, and George Leonidas Leslie. Her most well-known protégé was Sophie Lyons. Fredericka's right-hand man was Herman Staud. And though her husband Wolf stayed out of her criminal activities, her eldest son Julius played a key role. Julius and Staud were Fredericka's closest confidants. Though Marm was already known as the Queen of Fences, she truly cemented herself as a crime boss when she bankrolled one of the biggest heists in American history, the Ocean National Bank robbery of 1869. This heist was a masterpiece of planning and execution. Marm spent 3 months preparing the operation alongside mastermind George Leonidas Leslie and his crew, even going so far as to build a replica of the bank's vault to rehearse the break-in. When they finally made their move, they walked away with nearly $800,000, an enormous fortune at the time, equivalent to almost $19 million today. The Ocean National Bank robbery shocked New York City and remains one of the largest bank heists in American history. By the 1870s, Fredericka was at the height of her power, controlling New York's criminal underworld with unmatched influence. However, amidst her immense success, she faced personal tragedy. Her husband, Wolf, passed away in 1875. Now, fully in charge of her family's future, Fredericka pressed on with even greater determination. Marm's influence wasn't confined to the underworld. Unlike future organized crime bosses, Fredericka didn't hide in the shadows. She placed herself directly in the public eye. She was often quoted in newspapers, known for wearing $40,000 worth of jewels and dressing in silks, ostrich feathers, and sealskin. A well-respected member of her synagogue, she hosted lavish parties attended by New York's most influential figures, including judges, politicians, and even members of the police force. Marm had an uncanny ability to navigate both the criminal underworld and high society, earning respect in both spheres. This duality made her nearly untouchable. Her charisma and generosity, combined with a shrewd understanding of human nature, allowed her to cultivate relationships that protected her empire from legal scrutiny. Despite not being able to vote, she was widely recognized for her influence within the Lower East Side and the Jewish community, with Boss Tweed and Tammany Hall politicians actively seeking her favor. Unlike most criminal bosses, Marm's operations were almost entirely non-violent, focused solely on property crime. This non-violent approach likely contributed to her unique ability to be liked and respected in both the underworld and high society. By 1884, Marm's criminal empire had ruled the Lower East Side for nearly 25 years, but her network of connections had spread across the country and into Canada. However, as the saying goes, all good things must come to an end. That same year, Peter B. Olney became the new district attorney, and he set his sights on taking down Marm. Knowing the local police were compromised, Olney enlisted the famous Pinkerton Detective Agency to dismantle her criminal enterprise. The Pinkertons conducted a sting operation, led by Detective Gustav Frank, who posed as a silk dealer to gain Marm's trust. Over the next 5 months, Marm sold him nearly 12,000 yards of stolen fabric. On July 22, 1884, Frank arrested her along with her son, Julius. Though Marm and Julius were freed on bail and set to stand trial later that year, she had one last trick up her sleeve. On December 4, 1884, the day of her trial, Fredericka failed to appear in court. Despite round-the-clock surveillance by the Pinkertons, she had vanished. Fredericka had pulled off the impossible. She and Julius fled to Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, with over $1 million in tow. At the time, there was no extradition treaty between the US and Canada. Her escape left Olney and the Pinkertons humiliated and enraged, and only added to her legend. In Canada, Marm Mandelbaum lived out her final years in relative comfort. She joined a local synagogue and opened a dry goods store. Despite her exile, Marm managed to sneak back to New York in 1885 for her daughter's funeral. Even though the authorities knew she was there, the police turned a blind eye and did not arrest her. When asked by a reporter how she liked Canada, she replied, "I'm tired of it. I'm sorry I ever left New York." In 1894, at the age of 66, Marm died of natural causes in Hamilton, Ontario. Local papers remembered her as a woman of kindly disposition, broad sympathies, and large intelligence. In death, Marm was able to return to the city she loved. She was buried in her family plot in Queens, New York. Fredericka Mandelbaum ruled New York's underworld for nearly 25 years without ever cracking a safe, picking a lock, or firing a gun. She controlled the underworld with a mother's touch, and though she was beloved by everyone around her, make no mistake, Marm was as ruthless as they come. The Queen of Fences amassed a fortune, earning millions and commanding respect in both the underworld and high society. Unlike many of New York's infamous crime bosses, she never served time in jail or met a violent end. Instead, she lived out her days in comfortable exile. The marvelous Mrs. Mandelbaum's story reminds us that power comes in many forms. Sometimes it commands with a sharp stick and fists, and sometimes it wears a silk dress and diamonds. As always, don't forget to like and hit that subscribe button. Your support helps this channel grow, allowing us to bring you even more incredible stories. If you enjoyed this video, we release new episodes weekly, so click the bell icon so you never miss a future video. This is UnRecalled History. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.